Well, if it seems like the number of cases involving inappropriate relations between a female teacher and a male student have risen, it's because it has. In our state alone, the number of cases in the last 5 years can litter nearly every county in our state. And a study in the Journal of Childhood Sexual Abuse shows 112 cases in the southeastern states from 2007 to 2011. Let's talk about it. Joining us this morning is our licensed therapist and Fox 6 News contributor, Dr. Misty Smith, and joining us by phone, Dr. Timothy Stone. He is the state mental health director. Before we get to your bill, we do want to hit some of these other issues including the address the Senate race. And as you know, State Representative Ed Henry made some strong allegations against you, and I know your office has already responded to that attack. But from a political standpoint, fair or unfair, if he and others create or build a perception around your appointment of corruption, how do you overcome that as a campaign in such a short amount of time before the August primary?
Well, I think having been AG for 6 years, people know my record very well. You know, I put together their own jurisdictions.
But similar legislation has been met with some opposition by local law enforcement in states that have sanctuary cities. Some feel like, well, it puts too much of a burden on local law enforcement, that they have to act as ICE agents. And they're also concerned that detainees, there might be lawsuits forming that they've had their Fourth Amendment rights violated. How do you respond to that?
Well, as a former Attorney General, one of the principles...
You know, there's a lot of angst among people right now. People think they're going to lose some of their coverage. People concerned about Medicare right now, pre-existing conditions. So in terms of what you may or may know about the Senate plan, how will it address some of those concerns?
Well, I'm glad that in their cooperation.
Now, critics did point to the fact that they didn't use the term radical Islamic terrorism. Of course, that was a point of contention, people who were opposing to President Obama. So is there a shift there as well, do you think, on his part?
I don't think so. I think...
Well, a few months ago, the new state attorney general was scheduled to join us, but severe weather caused us to postpone. A lot has happened since then, including a change in governorship. But meanwhile, Steve Marshall has made good on his promise to rejoin us to discuss a number of topics. Counselor, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, the man who appointed you is no longer the governor. And as everyone knows, you had to recuse yourself from the investigation into him that eventually led to his resignation. But just curious, your thoughts now. What had to be a very awkward turn of events?
Very awkward, but to a conclusion that this state needed.
Are you concerned at all that some of your opponents, though, might try to use your connection with the former governor, possibly against you, potentially to hurt your campaign?
They could.
The conversation. That was the exchange between Alabama head coach Nick Saban and Paul Feinbaum of the SEC Network in response to questions related to his decision not to suspend players Cam Robinson and Hootie Jones. Joining us now by phone is Paul Feinbaum of the SEC Network. Paul, thank you for your time this morning.
Yeah, Mike, it is by phone because Nick Saban has me locked in a closet somewhere.
Well, for people who did not hear or see that entire interview, if you could put it into context exactly what was asked and what Coach Saban took issue with.
Yeah, let me and people are trying to turn this into a UFC cage match.
Well, it was tweeted by several reporters that Coach Saban implied that law enforcement in Louisiana who arrested the players in the first place were disgruntled LSU fans. Now, is that a fair characterization of his comments in your opinion?
Yes, and Cam Robinson will play against Southern Cal.
I think that's all they care about. Real quickly, though, about his handling of that discipline, we do know that charges were dropped. So do you think the players should have been suspended? And if so, why?
Well, he thinks I did. I should. Yeah, I do.
Welcome back in. Well, a new documentary opens at the Alabama Theater tomorrow night entitled Atticus versus the Architect, the political assassination of Don Siegelman. The press release says it exposes the wrongful conviction of the former governor and former Health South CEO Richard Scrushy. Joining us in the studio this morning is the former CEO of Health South, Richard Scrushy, and Steve Wimberly. He's the producer and director of this documentary. Thank you, gentlemen, both for coming in today.
Thank you.
Steve, I want to first start with you. I understand the Siegelman camp is not endorsing this documentary, so what contentions have they made against it?
Well, they wanted certain parts to determine exactly what was going to go in the film and what wasn't. So
their basic disagreements maybe with minor things or major points about it?
Really, probably more minor, but it's a, as a filmmaker, was, I think, the reason. So.
Richard, the indictment against you, people know this, it's well documented. The indictment originally led to the conviction that you donated $500,000 or more to the Siegelman campaign in exchange for official favors, particularly influence on the Alabama Certificate of Need Review Board. So what part that led to your conviction do you dispute?
Well, first of all, I never gave $500,000. That was a lie from the beginning. So that wasn't true, and I had never received any favors, and I had served under the previous 3 governors, just fantastic, because it reveals the truth.
But you understand the appearance of impropriety is why there's going to be skepticism by many of our viewers right now. So how does this documentary then address that evidence? What evidence do you show to dispute what the federal government brought against in this courtroom?
Well, everything in the documentary to a comprehensive, coherent message of what really happened. I
also understand this documentary contends that U.S. Attorney Laura Canary still influenced the prosecution even after she recused herself because her husband did work for Bob Riley's campaign. So what evidence is presented backing that claim?
Well, there's whistleblower evidence. There were people who were there, behind the scenes. The prosecutors themselves, working under Laura Canary, were guilty of prosecutorial misconduct.
Richard, talk about your willingness to cooperate with this documentary, because some people might ask, what purpose will this serve at this point? What would you say?
Well, first of all, I had not seen it. I saw the trailer like everyone else did. I saw it for the first time. It's just wonderful to see.
And you did serve your time, and I know prison ministry is
right.
very important to you right now. I do want to ask you though, because there are going to be people who worked for Health South, and we know that a federal jury exonerated you of some of the criminal charges and what happened at Health South. But there's still some people who lost their jobs who are going to hold you responsible in terms of your leadership. What do you say to those people then who lost their jobs? Do you feel responsible at all with what went down at Health South?
You always feel responsible, absolutely. If you're the CEO, you feel responsible. The things did happen on my watch, and I feel horrible about it. I ended up coming down, but that company came back. So,
all right, we got to wrap up here. Again, the movie Atticus versus the Architect, the political assassination of Don Siegelman. What time tonight at tomorrow night at Alabama Theater?
7:30.
7:30. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Mickey's up next.
This drunk driving problem.
Now, it would be up to the states to adopt this recommendation, and it should be noted that it took 21 years for all the states to drop the BAC from 0.1 to 0.08. While the recommendation has been met with approval by some, criticism has come from trade groups representing restaurants. Joining us this morning by phone from Washington, D.C. is Sara Long. She is the managing director of the American Beverage Institute. Sara, according to the NTSB, nearly 10,000 people die each year from alcohol-related accidents. They think this recommendation could save lives by lowering this limit, but you take issue with this recommendation. Why?
Absolutely. We are never going to solve this problem.
Well, certainly it does seem hard to believe that to somebody who's going to get on the road just trashed out of their mind, 0.05 is not going to affect them or be a deterrent. But in Australia, reports of alcohol-related traffic fatalities has dropped after that country dropped its blood alcohol content level to 0.05. So there is data to support this, is there not?
No, the NTSB is being really misleading in how they're presenting their data. The fact is, most of things.
Sure, they are.
The NTSB is trying to present it like it's a causal effect.
That is true, Sara, but there is data to support that at 0.07, your driving reactions are impaired. At 0.08, your chance of an accident increases by 100%. Anybody with a family or kids on the road says, hey, look, why not? How can this hurt?
Well, I actually think that Americans are going to be very much opposed to this proposal. I mean, the fact is you're more impaired talking on a hands-free cell phone.
Sara,
we're going to make ourselves less safe if we continue to focus on these social drinkers and not the real drunks out there.
All right, thank you, Sara. You got the last word there. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Just real quickly before we go to the break, the Alabama Department of Public Safety released a statement to me that said, only quote, this is an NTSB issue and does not involve DPS at this point. All right, we'll be right back with more Good Day. Stick around. Get It Baby, a new song out by Tito Jackson, of course, one of the original members of the Jackson 5 and a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he joins us right now in studio this morning. Tito Jackson, great to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
I told you earlier, it kind of dates me a little bit. I saw you guys touring as the Jackson 5, Jacksonville Memorial Coliseum on the Off the Wall tour. So again, that kind of dates me a little
70s.
bit. Yeah. How much do you reflect, though, on those memories when you were touring with your brothers?
Well, they're great memories. You take pictures next to them and bring them back to class and share them.
Oh, that is awesome. 9 members of your family now recorded and released hit records, and obviously you've experienced enormous success yourself. So what was it like, though, dealing with all that pressure of having to try to succeed at such a young age?
Well, it wasn't hard because the next day at Dinah Ross's birthday party.
Oh, wow.
And at that party was, we were singing Motown songs.
Mm-hmm.
We're singing Marvin Gaye song to Marvin Gaye. We're singing Temptations to Temptations, all these megastars was there. We're singing their hits to them.
Wow. And I don't want to dwell on it too much because we want to talk about your hit song and also the giving project you have, Winning by Giving. But, you know, we lost the king of pop, Michael, so it devastated us. I just can't imagine what it's like for the family to have to process that.
Yeah, it's more than just the person that's at every moment. And one of the happiest moments in our life now is when we go on stage because we can feel his presence somehow. And that seems to ease the pain a little.